And if something looks a bit too casual, it's probably gonna be this frontal lighting that I was fixing just now, so make it even darker. That way you get an even stronger contrast thanks to the difference in the brightness of different light sources. Hi guys, my name is Dante, and welcome back to Overpaint. Well, not really. This is not exactly Overpaint. I decided it would be a good idea to go through all the amazing submissions that you guys sent to me. It's like a artwork review kind of thing, to make sure no one's completely left out. At least I can give you quick advice and at least react to your submissions, have fun together and communicate a bit better. I think it's a really cool way of doing it. First patient, Oleg Rum, with his quite dynamic and very disturbing image. Hi Burrow. Yo, thank you so much for your videos. I've been drawing on a tablet for about 2 years. Here's one of the latest pictures and I would suggest it for an Overpaint episode. During salmon spawnings, bears stand on the rapids of rivers and catch fish jumping out of the water, but this time something went wrong. Or very right. Overall, I like this picture. It's funny, a little crazy, and I think it's pretty well drawn. I agree, it's pretty cool. But I want someone more experienced than me to look at it and suggest how it can be fixed and improved. Thank you and good luck! Thanks! Okay, the first thing I looked at and it immediately made me uncomfortable is, well, after this, the back of this bear. My first advice, immediately, any kind of animal, any kind of thing at all that is searchable, meaning anything but an abstract idea that you have in your head, look it up. Just always look everything up. I think I talked about it in the version 2.0 of how to draw like a god, because these proportions, they just don't seem right to me. This is like a human shoulder that this bear has, and like paws, right? You can see the paw is quite a different situation. Now, another thing that's really bothering me is just the location. It's a good place and all, but what I see is like just a cardboard one layer of the environment and then nothing. Nothing closer to us, like even this water, even though it continues, I can't really see that it's getting closer to us. So you actually need... Great, you have a very powerful car, random stranger. Yeah, to make sure it looks not as flat, because this looks right now like this surface of the water is just going downwards instead of going towards us. So make sure you introduce some details and then increase their size like this. It's really tempting to add more tiny details in this area because it feels kind of blank, but you need to be strong and make sure in here you maintain a bigger size of the waves, then it would look more appropriate. Another thing, you just have to have some kind of continuation of the river, or at least like mountains back over there, just so it would give some depth and understanding that this is not a waterfall. This is just a, as you said, a rapid of the river. I understand this is this little step of water where the salmon jumps upwards, you know, the way Discovery Channel told us. So it's not that dramatic that we would have like no visuals of what's going on further on the planet Earth. It would be totally cool to add it, and it would still make this salmon looking very dominant and intimidating or whatever, because the horizon line, we would actually show it right here. Maybe we could even like tilt it a bit and get a more dynamic shot and going a bit crazy. Maybe one of the bears was holding the camera and now it's all tilted because he is scared. Also, overlapping objects, right? You have a perfect row of these pine trees over there. Why not add another one, another smaller one maybe? So it would be in front of them, overlapping on top of the further ones. Maybe one or a couple ones that are far away and more like an aerial perspective. Stuff like that, like blend it into the aerial perspective. And generally, this is like a cartoonish kind of picture. So I almost feel like it's a crime that the characters look very stiff. Like the salmon is kind of cool, though I would definitely add some water drops as well, like a lot. There's very little connection between this splash. It feels like it's far, far away, and the salmon is a lot closer and has nothing to do with that splash. And yeah, the rest of the characters show a bit more of a like a cartoonish shape, like posture of the character, so he would be like more scared looking. I don't know, look up like Pixar animation screenshots or something like that. Really, it's just about never get lazy about looking up references for anything. Next patient, Nicholas DePowell. Burrow, thanks for being one of many great art teachers helping us art kiddies grow. Thanks, I hope that's true with my loose approach to everything. Take a look at what you helped make. Oh, interesting. Well, this looks lovely. I wouldn't even sure, like horses are dark woods for me. Because you simply need to know them, know the anatomy, draw it a lot. It generally looks pretty solid, like some of the body parts are a bit like, you know, there's a feeling like they're struggled in. But that mostly has to do with like brushwork, somewhere around here maybe, and some stiff areas, but I wouldn't tell if it's actually wrong or not. What I really like is the shading, for instance, on the bigger horse head. A really cool, like a dry paper-like shading. It's a very rough surface kind of shading. It probably looked just like that, like the shape was just like that in the photo reference, but most likely it had certain nuances that made it look not as papery, like dry kind of shading, and had more of this shiny look the way horse surfaces are. But nonetheless, I don't know if this was intentional or not. I think it looks really cool. I think it looks kind of like white marble statues. Something like this I was seeing at every corner of Italy when I went there last fall. It gives it a really cool look, like these are some kind of mythical horses. Good mythical horses. I would maybe lift the horses a bit higher. I'm feeling like they're being attacked by the bottom edge of the canvas. In general, cool work. Next patient, Coda. I think we have an episode of Overpain with Coda's artwork, and this is just a little update post from them apparently. Yeah, I actually answered it back then. Just a little feedback for your latest video. You're right, your videos are very interesting. Thank you. I've discovered your channel about 4 years ago, and look what it did to my drawing skills. Thank you very much for your work, and I hope that you're gonna enjoy making different content. Thank you, I sure will. And this is an awesome transformation indeed. Like, this is also a really cool art style. I really like this image, but it's more like badge kind of, graffiti kind of look. Some areas are just learned flat shapes. Not all of it, but it has more of a flat feeling to it. When this thing is definitely like three-dimensional, although I would say I'm still feeling a bit two-dimensional about this round thing. Like, how much is it going backwards? Like this, and in here as well. Or maybe it's not as drastic and it's going away more like this, which is mostly the way I feel about it. It's more like this, because you can see this shadow is really close to the head, so pretty much the head is touching this ring. And at the same time, these arms, they're also on top of the ring. So it's really like the ring should be facing us like this, almost completely. And because of that, I'm not sure about the logic of this device at all. It just doesn't work. It means the stick is like this, and the ring, instead of being like this, it's like this. What is this then? Like, I wouldn't know what this is, even if it would be perpendicular and all, but yeah. Next patient, JC Toem, with his pretty gloomy gothic female character with horns. Pretty dark. Hello, Borodante. Hi. I have been a silent fan of yours for a while now, and I always delight in your videos. It is great to see you posting again. Oh, apparently I was posting back then. If you get a chance, I would love to have your help with this. This painting is of my character Sumar, and it is one I have a few iterations of. I learn a lot each time I try it, but know I have a lot more to learn. Just like the experience I have with Black Widow. Actually starting to fancy the idea of restarting that again. He is a creature of shadow, so it's a he. He's a creature of shadow with skin that is a slightly warm gray. And he has white pupilless eyes. Ooh. He is fascinated by rich colors because he has no natural color. In painting this, I was very happy at how it turned out, but also extremely aware that I lack a full range of contrast and some of my anatomy is off. Would you lend me a little of your experience, please? Alright, JC, let's take a look. So, couple of things. Number one, I would move the character a bit closer to the center because the rectangle is so narrow, it feels like we need to use a bit more space in it. Like, it's kind of a rule of thirds I can see in this original, but nonetheless, I would really love to move it like this because another important thing, I can see how these fingers were really cut by the edge of the canvas. So you can either cut them off a lot like this, or give a little bit of space, like an invisible imaginary like margin, distance and shear to let it breathe in the canvas, so it would look like it's not accidental, it's actually in the shot. So yeah, considering the narrow aspect ratio, I would go with this kind of location. And like the biggest problem, the contrast that you mentioned. Like the contrast is fine. The eyeball is really white and the clothing is really dark, which is full contrast. The problem is in the choice of imaginary lighting we have in here. There's almost none. There's just like ambient, all directional lighting kind of thing. Like all of this is lit from everywhere. It's kind of weird. Even like from the bottom a little bit, although there is a little shadow in here. I'm gonna give it that, but it's really boring of a lighting. So I was thinking I would add this kind of stuff, right? My favorite kind of appearance, where we have a supporting aerial perspective conveniently placed right behind the character, which is nothing to be ashamed about. In paintings, you use that kind of stuff. It kind of disappears in here. You see, I don't go all crazy like highlighting the whole head like this. You also need to think like, this is a spot that is over there. So if it's over there, it would be a bit stronger like this and here, and not necessarily strong over there. And in here, going the same way. But anyway, that's just one thing. We're supporting the character's outline instead of using this suspiciously sharp, narrow, like tiny outline of the character. Outlines that don't go anywhere into the character look kind of flat, like it's a cartoon that's pretending to be a painting. It could go a lot darker, actually. It could be like I could blend a little bit all of it with the darkest color of the background into something like this. And you see it's a lot more subtle and cool looking, and we totally can still see the character awesomely. Much better than here. And here, if we downscale this picture, that little outline, it kind of disappears because it's not real. It's pixel precise. That means if we resize, it's gone. And that means even if we're looking at it full size, it's still not high contrast enough or not sustainable enough to actually support the character's outline. Gradients better than outlines. Pretty much always in any painting. Now, finally, the last thing I want to say for the shading of the skin. Make sure you come up with a more interesting lighting. Like say there's a light hitting the character from that side. Well, in here we could get some cool Terminator. Maybe, not necessarily, but that would be cool. And in here, like on this frontal plane, we would actually have this soft, subtle, not so bright of a light source. I don't know, something like this if we go real quick about it. Just don't rush. Use a transparent brush that can do like this kind of thingy, and softly, accurately search for the right contrast. Think about where each part of the surface on any body part is directed to and look for that nice tasty shading. I would also try to make this secondary or main, whatever, this frontal light a bit darker. That would give more mystery to the character. Also, I don't know about the dynamic range of this picture, but I don't see a reason for it to be like this at least. It's not gonna become less dark, we'll just see it better. And if something looks a bit too casual, it's probably gonna be this frontal lighting that I was fixing just now, so make it even darker. That way you get an even stronger contrast thanks to the difference in the brightness of different light sources. And that's maybe the kind of contrast that you were talking about. Long story short, to make the dark image look dark, even though we have a full range of contrast and brightness, the brightest light in a dark scene should be the secondary light that's hitting the main object from the side. So the overall surface, where we can actually see it influencing the object, would be a lot smaller than the surface that is influenced by the main light that's hitting from the front. That makes the image not just dark, but also mysterious and cool looking. Next patient. Oh yeah, remember this. This made me a bit uncomfortable when I first saw this. Like, it looks very cute and anime on one hand, like the character is like a cosplayer or something, maybe a streamer. But the face, it's so like messed up a bit. It's obviously having some kind of meltdown, and just the features of the face remind me a lot of the main character in the movie Creep. Anyway, what's the story? KB Draws 92. Hi Borrow, sup? I absolutely love your work. You've been a massive inspiration and the reason I went from digital drawing to painting. Awesome, glad to hear that. Then you can go full circle and switch from painting to drawing, but in a more three-dimensional way. That's also a cool trip. I do mostly portraits, nothing wrong with that. And I'm starting to like where they're going, but definitely know there's a long way to go. Attached is a portrait of one of my characters, Maxwell. He's a spirit of madness, and while usually he loves every aspect of it, it can get to him. Well, I mean, the fact that this is a spirit makes the whole image a bit not as heavy. I painted this in fire alpaca. Oh, cool. Using only a hard brush with pressure-sensitive opacity. Cool. You can pretty much paint absolutely everything with that brush. I'd love to see what you'd make of it if you get to this. Thanks for being awesome. Thank you for being awesome. You guys work so much and submit so much interesting different stuff. Let's see what I can say about it. I don't even know. I'm gonna say, like, I'm really trying not to go into lighting right away because it's gonna be the same thing for any painting, which is actually totally legit because in most cases lighting is kind of hard to do for many people who don't just do it all the time. So I would totally go with the lighting right away, but I also want to say, and probably that's pretty obvious to most people, the hat is way too big and it looks kind of off. Even like in my terms of a big head, this is too big. Like, it's almost like the width, if you also get hair into the equation, it's almost the width of the shoulders, like holy. So yeah, I would spread those shoulders a bit further. Maybe a bit lower though. Also, just the size of the hands. Like, you see, the palm is pretty much the height of my whole head. Maybe a little bit smaller, like the height of the face from here to here. And this guy, I don't think that would be true. Well, yeah, they should be more like that. Same thing here. Yeah, this feels right. I think I'm onto something here. I may wanna like liquefy the fingers a bit because they feel a bit sausagey. Also bent in a bit of a weird way. Usually, like this joint, it doesn't really bend more than this joint. First, this joint will be bent a lot more before this one gets to bend, you see? So yeah, in here, this curvature should really be a lot more pronounced in this part, and not in that one. It's really easy to do, like, you don't even have to, like, change the final, like the destination of the fingertip, just change the angles between these two joints. So that's a middle finger. It should be longer than this one, the ring finger. So I'm gonna just quickly liquefy that. I don't know, it's too much, but you get the point. Don't forget that this finger should be longer than this one. On that note, by the way, the pinky is a bit too huge in here. Very puffy areas over here. I mean, they almost could look like that, but I think the character would need to be like really overweight for this cushy, meaty part of the palm being that strong. Something like this. And finally, the shading. Let's choose like a shadow color. I would just go with something of this violet. I think I want to just make the right side of everything darker. I think it would bring up some of that madness. Contact shadows getting darker. Yeah, and thanks to that darker lighting on one side, we can actually get a better outline of the character in here as well. And of course, like, I didn't really pay attention to like the whole translucency thing and stuff like that. Should have probably added a bit more of maybe like this tone to the skin, because in some areas I added this dirty dark violet color. Also, you see I'm adding some brighter surface spots where the surface of the face is facing the light source more. In here, however, we may be turning away a little bit from the light source, so this part can get a bit darker. And that's how you fix values, little by little. Something like that, a little bit more of that bridge on top of the nose, because there was none at all. Next patient. Oh boy. Oh boy. That's an epic dude. Hey bro. Sup homie? I think you'll have a field day with this one. I struggled with proportions, perspective, and lighting so much. Towards the end, I couldn't see or think straight anymore. I struggled with brush choices and consistency in style too. I hope you can help. Thanks for everything. Cheers. Tech Rival. Okay, how do we quickly introduce a better angle to this shot? I have no idea. Like, does the picture absolutely have to be at 3/4 angle to be three-dimensional? Can't we have this kind of cinematic 90 degrees angle and have it perceived as a good three-dimensional image? Okay, let's start with zooming out a little bit. Something like this, and I'll actually use this extra mushroom right here, because I really didn't like that there's some action and tension going on with the rope at the very top of the canvas. It's like an important moment. I think it needs a bit more room. Rock. Let's look up some references for that. Going back to the whole idea of having to look up a lot of references. And note that I came back to this advice exactly when we have another picture with a lot of background, because that's where you really need references. I don't know, maybe there's some thought behind this, like maybe this is another stem of a mushroom. So I would look up stems of mushrooms, and I would look for any kind of recognizable features of the stems to introduce here, so it would be noticeable that this is the mushroom stem. Look at that stuff. I like this shot, it even has like a curvature that we need. So I'll introduce some of those patterns. I think I'm not paying attention to the stuff that actually needs to be addressed, but whatever. I'll start with like a lot of darker spots like this that are like getting more compressed towards like the edge of this shape, because cylinder, that's all you need to know. So immediately it looks like something organic. I think it's a lot more fun, and apparently like the author really wanted to get away with just using a lot of photo textures overlaid on top of the image, which is a crime and you should feel bad. You should actually paint textures of objects That's how you get textures of objects. Now the anatomy. I'm not sure I understand where this leg is coming from. Kind of feels like it's coming out of the center of the character a bit. Like it doesn't really... It should be lower. Maybe there was a problem that the angle of the wall is too steep and the leg just wouldn't fit, but it's not gonna work if you just relocate the joints of your limbs. Honestly, I'm eyeballing it. Again, look up references. Someone raising legs at a steep angle of whatever, climbing something, right? So the curvature of the wall is not cooperating, so why not just move the curvature, right? Oh, also, there should be like, you see, the leg is going like this in here. The cloth of the pants doesn't show the tension between the legs at all, which is really weird. That's why it feels like this right leg is completely separate or something. So what we need to do is add a little bit of this. When we have such a strong stretch, we need to show it with the cloth. I hope. This is a very extreme pose, not gonna lie. Also, I think this belt thing, it needs to be a bit sideways, because the torso is really like almost completely facing us, so that's where everything else should go. This really empty space, why not add some really big mushrooms in here as well? I really like the picture, by the way. I don't think I mentioned that. It is a lot of fun. I always like pictures where mushrooms are involved. The very first painting on this channel, it was about a mushroom man. A lot of fun. Alright, let's add a little bit of more of that shading. So I'll simply like shade surfaces that are facing not upwards a bit darker than the surfaces that face upwards. That's all it is. Also, it introduced some like higher contrast to the horizon of the sky because it's really flat and it doesn't have to go like that. There we go, it feels a lot more like outdoors, isn't it? When the character is darker than the sky behind him. And overall, that's the change I did. Honestly, doesn't feel like that much of a change. I just made it black pretty much to hide it, I think. Something like this, like these angles, that's what they do. Like look up stretching jeans or something, you'll see these exact wrinkles. Maybe I'll liquefy the leg a little bit though, because it does feel like this knee is really low. Small hands again. Okay, cool. I feel like this one is not that much of a subject for overpaint, but more like for restarting with the sketch at a different angle. You really need that different angle, I think. It's just not everything can be painted, really. Or everything, but not at any condition, not at any angle, not at any pose. Certain things just would look weird, stiff, and random. And paintings, they don't really like randomness. You really need to make sure everything is visualized the best possible way, with more recognizable gestures, more confident representation of what the character is doing. And I think in this image, it would also be important, like not necessarily rotating the whole shot, but for instance, the fact that the head is also completely sideways. That's a big one. Even if it totally makes sense, and it does, for him to look upwards, still, a little rotation. It's pretty much like necessary. That's a lot. So this will be it for this episode of Overpaint Review Edition. There's probably a lot more submissions going forward. We'll go through this probably in the next episode of this. If any of you guys want to submit your artwork for this kind of review at least, or maybe even for a bigger exclusive Overpaint episode, you can do that right here on my Patreon page. So you can see patreon.com/borrowdante. Yeah, the $5 tier is the Overpaint tier. You become my patron and submit the picture in the community tab, and I go through it the way I did today with many submissions. Also, real quick, I'm in no way canceling Overpaint series. If anything, I'll feel a lot more connected to the whole thing. Yeah, that probably means more Overpaint, not less. And also, even if I quickly review someone's picture in this format, it doesn't mean that there's no way it's gonna be painted over in the future, like actual full overpaint format. If some of you guys submitted something a very long time ago and for some reason I missed it, you can just resubmit the same picture or the new picture and I'll go through it again, or for the first time, really. Okay, bye! Really like the way this one turned out. I have just the right set of tools to make this kind of painting work. Yeah, I really like the way it turned out.